They pushed the stack of papers toward me as if it were routine. "Just medical consent forms, Mom," Ron said, wearing that easy smile he uses when he's hiding something. But something about the weight of the envelope and the way Dana's eyes lingered, too focused, too cautious, made me uneasy. I opened the packet, adjusted my glasses, and read the heading. Transfer of property and financial authority. They really thought I'd just sign. At 78, maybe they assumed the stroke had dulled my senses. But after 43 years as a librarian, I still know what every word on a page means. "I'll review it later," I said, sliding it back. Dana's mouth tightened. Ron chuckled, but his eyes didn't match the sound. "It began weeks ago, not the stroke, thank heavens, but the sudden wave of affection. The surprise visits, the helpful errands, the groceries I never requested. They spoke in the language of concern, but their movements had intention. Dana cleaning the garage without asking. Ron changing my locks, for safety. And they always found ways to keep me from my phone too long. I've lived in this same single-story home in Western New York since William and I built it in '72. He passed away 12 years ago in his favorite chair, right there in the den. We raised 2 sons here, one left and never looked back, and the other, Ron, stayed close, though never too close to help. Until now. They keep using words like safety, comfort, peace of mind. But I hear the truth underneath. They want me gone, or rather, they want this house. Paid off, near the lake. With good soil and quiet neighbors. I've caught Dana scrolling through real estate listings when she thinks I'm not watching. Last week over soup, Ron mentioned power of attorney. "Just precautionary," he said, and Dana handed me a pen like she was offering me salt. I laughed it off then, but when the envelope appeared on my table today, their calm voices sounded almost desperate. After they left, I brewed tea and sat by the window. The house was still, but the quiet felt heavier than usual, like something fragile had shifted. The envelope sat on the counter, its title staring back like a threat. It wasn't about medicine. It was about control. I thought of the rose bushes William planted each spring, the dent in the kitchen counter from when I dropped a skillet, the mark in the floor where the boys used to play with their trucks. Every corner here holds a story. They think it's just property. At 2 o'clock I called Marion, my old bridge partner. We hadn't spoken since I'd been in the hospital. "Marion," I said, "does your son's firm still handle elder law?" She paused, then replied softly, "Yes, dear. Want his number?" I wrote it down. No need to explain. Women our age recognize danger by instinct. That evening I went through every folder: deed, insurance, savings, William's will. Slower than I used to, but deliberate. Order has always been my shield. Ron's car circled the block once after dark. He didn't stop. They think I've gone soft, but they forget who I was. The woman who once caught a parent forging a school document and shut down the whole system until it was fixed. I rate everything. Twice. Tomorrow, I'll call that lawyer. When Ron first started showing up uninvited, he brought a cherry pie, store-bought, of course. "Just thought you'd like a treat," he said, wandering through the house like a stranger. That was 2 months after my stroke, when I was walking steady again. My mind wasn't slow, just different, sharper in new ways. Then came the batteries, the sheets, the blood pressure cuff. "It's just to make things easier," Dana said, but ease wasn't what they were after. They began cleaning, sorting, discarding. I noticed my emergency cash was gone. Dana feigned concern. "Maybe you misplaced it." They called it help. I called it erasure. One afternoon, I found them digging through my filing cabinet. "We're just organizing your insurance paperwork," Ron said. Dana held the folder with my will inside. "I'll handle it myself," I told them. Her smile was tight, his laugh was hollow. A week later came the talk of hiring a nurse. Then cameras. Then forms, from some non-existent clinic. Each request a little more invasive. I began keeping notes in a small notebook, dates, words, movements. William used to say, "Boundaries are like gates. Open them once, and they never quite close." That night, I moved the deed to my sewing box and changed the locks. I wasn't being paranoid, I was being practical. Days passed quietly, except for the small intrusions. Dana going through my mail. Ron canceling my newspaper, because the ink smudges. My car vanished next. He said it needed repairs. It didn't. They want control over my mobility, my access, my autonomy. When I discovered my phone contacts had been altered, my heart sank. No Lillian, no Marion, only Ron and Dana. Even my voicemail greeting wasn't my voice anymore. Quiet theft, dressed up as kindness. They've begun speaking about me like I'm not here. She's getting confused. Dana told someone on the phone last week. I was sitting right beside her, peeling an apple. I wrote the word transition in my notebook that night and underlined it twice. Ron came the next day with a printed assessment from an online doctor neither of us had met. It just confirms what we've noticed, some early decline. His voice was soft, rehearsed. I looked him in the eye and smiled. I may move slower now, but I'm still the woman who reads the fine print, and this time, I'm the one writing the ending. Did the doctor actually speak to me? I asked. Ron blinked. No, but Dana explained everything in detail. I'm right here, I said evenly. I can speak for myself. He nodded, but I saw it, the doubt. Every word I said wasn't being heard, only analyzed. Once people decide you're slipping, they stop listening. They just wait for confirmation that they were right. Later that day, Dana arrived with a new lamp. Brighter light, easier on your eyes, she said, setting it by the bed and quietly moving my old one into the hallway. After she left, I put it back. I've never needed brightness to feel safe. When Judith, the lawyer, came that Friday, she brought a calm confidence with her, a woman near my age, composed, professional, without the fake warmth younger ones use. She sat at my dining table, opened a thick folder and said, I reviewed your documents. Your husband's old will still lists you as sole heir and executor. That's good. But the trust, has it ever been finalized? No, I admitted. We kept putting it off. She gave a knowing nod. Happens more often than you'd think. We spent nearly an hour reviewing everything. Bank records, deeds, and my handwritten notes. Then I handed her the folder Ron and Dana had brought over, the one labeled medical forms. She flipped through, then frowned. This isn't medical paperwork, she said quietly. It's a property transfer with irrevocable power of attorney. If you'd signed this, you'd have surrendered ownership of your home and accounts entirely. My throat tightened. They said it was just a release for health information. Her eyes hardened. That's manipulation. Possibly fraud. We discussed what came next. A new will, a clear medical directive naming my own choice of representative, and activating the trust with safeguards in my name. Judith was thorough, methodical. By the end, I felt steady for the first time in months. Before leaving, she asked, would you like me to notify them formally? I hesitated. Not yet, I said. She studied me, then smiled faintly. You'd rather let them show their intentions first. Exactly. That night, I slept soundly for the first time since spring. On Sunday, they showed up again, with a stranger. This is Dr. Culled, Dana announced. The man smiled too broadly, tablet in hand, no coat, no stethoscope. He just wants to ask a few questions, she said. I didn't request a visit, I replied. It's just a courtesy check, he said lightly. Then I declined. Ron stepped forward. Mom? Don't be difficult. It's for your safety. I looked directly at the man. If you set one foot in my house without written consent, I'll call the police. Courtesy or not. The so-called doctor left without another word. Ron's face flushed. Dana folded her arms. This is what we mean, she said. You're becoming paranoid. No, I answered. This is what I mean. You treat me like a patient, not a person. But this is still my home. They packed up and left in silence. Afterward, I stood in the kitchen with a glass of water, staring at the apple peeler in the sink. The same one I used when Ron was 5 and refused to eat apple skin. They remember me as soft and tired. They forget what it took to raise them, to survive loss, to live alone. I am far from finished. Ron came alone the next time. No Dana, no papers. Just a plastic container in his hand. Brought your favorite, chicken and rice, he said. He'd forgotten I stopped eating chicken a year ago after that stomach illness. I thanked him, set it in the fridge untouched. He leaned on the counter, trying for sincerity. Mom, we've been worried. You're so independent, which is great, but one fall, one bad day, it's scary for us. There's no shame in letting us help. There's help, I said slowly, and there's control. You and Dana haven't helped. You've replaced, removed, and rearranged. You call it kindness. It feels like a takeover. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. I'm not senile, Ron. I forget words sometimes. Yes. But I read every document you've ever handed me. I knew exactly what I refused to sign. Silence thickened between us. Finally, he muttered, "We just thought it'd be simpler if things were settled." "For whom?" He looked away. "I've updated my will," I added quietly. "And my lawyer has copies of everything, signed and unsigned." His expression shifted from surprise to calculation. "You talked to a lawyer." "Wes?" He paused, jaw tight. "We'll need to discuss this as a family." "You're free to talk," I said. "I'm done listening to lies." He left without slamming the door, but I heard the restraint in it. Afterward, I sat in William's old chair and stared at the ceiling, remembering the boy Ron once was, building castles out of Legos, asking me to look. Somewhere along the way, the boy disappeared. Or maybe I just stopped being useful to him. I pulled my notebook from behind the sugar jar and flipped through pages of notes. One line, underlined twice, caught my eye. Ron suggested canceling property insurance so they could handle it. That was 2 months ago. I called the insurance company. A cheerful woman answered. "Everything looks active, ma'am. Has anyone contacted you on my behalf recently?" She hesitated. "A man named Ronald Dunn did. He said he was your son and had power of attorney." "He doesn't," I said. Her tone sharpened. "Understood. I'll make sure no one else makes changes without your direct consent. Thank you." When I hung up, I sat motionless. It wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. I spent the evening making a longer list of places they might interfere. Bank accounts, insurance, utilities, prescriptions, every opening they could use. The next morning, I called Judith and asked her to secure everything: passwords, authorizations, records. Brick by brick, I was building a wall around my life. That night, I cooked stew for one, turned on the radio, and ate in peace. The kitchen light was warm, familiar. When I washed the dishes, I looked at the 2 locks on the back door, the old one William installed, and the new one I'd added myself. 2 locks, 2 kinds of protection. I liked it that way. "I'm not signing anything today." Ron's face tightened, not angry, not shocked, just cold, controlled. The kind of expression someone wears when the game they thought they were winning starts slipping away. Dana gathered the papers with a too sweet smile, as if I'd just spilled something trivial. "That's fine," she said lightly. "Take your time." 20 minutes later, their car backed out of the driveway. I watched from the window until they turned the corner, the envelope still clutched in her hand. Then I locked the door. It's a strange kind of grief, realizing your child doesn't see you anymore. You've become an obligation, a signature, an account to be managed, not a mother to be respected. That night, sleep never came. I kept hearing William's voice, steady as ever: "Don't sign anything unless you understand every word." We used to read every document out loud together, even the boring ones. He'd joke, "Nothing in fine print is harmless." I still have the envelope, of course. Judith needed it for her records later, but I couldn't throw it away yet. I kept it close, like a splinter you don't pull. You just let your skin grow tough around it. A few mornings later, I sat at the kitchen table with my checkbook and 6 months of bank statements. I circled every charge I didn't recognize. One stood out: $325 monthly to a place called Home Care Solutions. When I called, the woman on the phone said, "Yes, that account is under Iris Dunn. Services started 4 months ago." "What services?" I asked. "Home visits, safety assessments, care coordination." "I've never met anyone from your company," I said. A pause. "Then it says your representative, Ronald Dunn, signed on your behalf." My hands trembled, not from age, but from fury. They'd already begun. They didn't need my permission. They just forged it. I told Judith everything. She was quiet for a long moment before saying, "We'll take care of this. You're not alone." Something broke open inside me. I didn't cry, not yet, but her words stayed with me all day, like warmth in a cold pocket. That evening, I made a list: what they've taken without asking. Mail forwarding, my car, subscription changes, banking control, my time, my peace. I pinned the list inside the pantry door, next to the fake property transfer form they'd tried to make me sign. I wanted to see it every day until I reclaimed it all. William used to fix things with his hands, A leaky faucet, a loose chair leg, anything. He'd crouch down, patient and steady, never rushing. That was his way. With everything and everyone. After he died, the quiet in this house wasn't peace. It was emptiness. The kind that makes you forget where you were headed. The kind that seeps into the walls. 12 years later, I still speak to him when I pass his photo. Lately, it's not just good morning. It's what would you do now? Will. I asked him that again the night after Ron brought those papers. I looked at our wedding photo, at the one of Will in his old flannel jacket by the shed he built. What would you say to your son if you saw what he's become? I whispered. Will never raised his voice. He didn't have to. His silence carried more weight than shouting ever could. Ron used to adore him, followed him everywhere, wanting to help with every task. Let me hold it, Dad. Let me try. I remember the night Will told him we couldn't afford a school trip. He sat him down and showed every expense, every number, treating him like an adult. We don't hide things in this family, he said. Not truth, not money, not love. That line echoed in my head now. We don't hide things. Ron has been hiding plenty. The next morning, I called Judith. I'm ready, I told her. Let's move forward. The trust, the directives, all of it. She didn't ask why. She just said, I'll prepare everything. Over the next week, I signed real documents, ones I read word for word. I created a trust in my name, made Judith co-trustee, and appointed Liz, my neighbor's daughter and a nurse, as my medical proxy, someone who helps from kindness, not greed. I transferred my savings into a secure account, added passwords and written approval clauses. Every page was clear and clean. Judith didn't miss a thing. At the end, she smiled gently. Most people your age don't fight back, she said. I folded the papers. I spent 43 years teaching children to read between the lines, I told her. It's about time I did the same. That night, I moved every important paper, the deed, the will, the trust, into a fireproof box under my bed. I brewed tea, set Will's picture beside it, and said, They tried to take what's ours, Will. But not anymore. The photo didn't answer, but I didn't feel alone. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, the woman before the stroke, before the quiet. Whole, steady, unafraid. She was right. Her brow creased slightly as she scanned the file. There's a note about shared account access, Ronald Dunn. I nodded. I never approved that. He submitted it without my consent. Her fingers stopped over the keyboard. Then, calm and professional, she printed out a new document. You can revoke it in writing right now. I signed and dated it. She stamped it. Would you like to add a verbal password for future access? She asked. Less, I said. Something only I'd remember, bookbinding. It was an old joke between William and me. If life ever got too complicated, we'd start a bookbinding shop in Vermont. Somewhere quiet, untouched by noise or machines. Carla entered the word and nodded. Anything else? Yes. I'd like to transfer half my funds to a new trust under the name Judith Caldwell, co-trustee. Efficient as ever, she made it happen. No fuss, no questions. It took about an hour. When I left, the sun had broken through the clouds. I walked slowly, deliberately. My steps were steady. On the way home, I stopped at the pharmacy, not for pills, but for answers. The manager came out, wiping his hands. All good with your prescriptions, Mrs. Dunn, Mosley, I said. Can you tell me if anyone else has picked them up recently? He frowned, checked the computer. Yes, looks like Ronald Dunn picked up your refill in August. I never authorized that, I said quietly. I'm sorry. He's listed as an alternate pickup. Please remove him, I replied. I added Liz's name instead. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook. 3 things off my list: bank access, pharmacy authorization, account security. I wrote a new line beneath. Standing tall is easier when you're not carrying someone else's weight. That evening, a voicemail came from Dana. Iris, this is causing so much tension. Ron's been really upset. We've always had your best interests at heart. Please don't make this harder. I deleted it. They loved that phrase, best interests, as if my independence was a mistake. But I don't need convenience, I need respect. Before bed, I gathered all my documents, bank forms, trust papers, legal notices, and added a letter to Eloise. Simple, just in case. I locked it away. The click felt final. Days later, a plain envelope arrived. No return address. Inside cognitive evaluation summary, Dr. S. called. The report was vague, unsigned, possible early decline, family concern, recommends supervised care, no exam date, no legitimacy. I remembered the man at my door. A courtesy check, he'd said. I told him to leave. This was his revenge. I drove straight to Judith's office. She read the document, frowned. This isn't valid, she said. I didn't consent to any exam. Then this is intimidation on paper. She filed it away. They're testing boundaries. Push back, or they'll go further. I know, I said. Let them try. That night, Liz came by. Still in her scrubs, tired but steady. She read the letter, jaw tightening. I can get this dismissed in minutes, she said. I don't need fixing, I replied softly. Just eyes on it. She nodded. You've got them. Outside, the wind stirred the leaves. Later, I saw headlights pause across the street. Same car as Ron's. I didn't flinch. The next morning, I scheduled a doctor's appointment, not because I was sick, but to prove I was well. Dr. Everett welcomed me warmly. She'd seen me through worse. When we finished, I asked, "Can you confirm in writing that I'm competent to manage my affairs?" She smiled. Absolutely. Judith placed the notarized statement in her file. Now, she said, we won't just defend, you'll stand. Dana called again. We're worried. That doctor said some things that made us question your judgment. We don't want to take legal steps, but we will if needed. I wrote her message down word for word, then phoned Judith. Send the cease and desist. Already drafted, she said. That evening, I sat outside with Will's old chair and the scent of rain. They thought fear would break me. But I've lived too long to mistake control for care. They wanted power. What they'll get is consequence. Judith's letter was short, firm, lawful. All future contact must go through my attorney. Any coercion or misrepresentation will be met with legal response. 3 copies sent to Ron, Dana, and their so-called doctor. Judith called it a wall, not war. Just protection. Ron went silent for days. Dana sent one line, I'm sad it came to this. No apology, just guilt dressed as empathy. I didn't respond. Instead, I rented a new post office box, transferred my mail, my pension, my peace. One more thing out of reach. Then I rejoined the library board, my old community. When I spoke, people listened. Not because I was loud, but because I was sure. That weekend I cooked myself dinner. Trout, potatoes, green beans. A quiet celebration. Later I opened the box of photos. William, Ron, me. A family once. Love doesn't disappear, but trust does. Now I build new things, boundaries, routines, calm. Not to shut out love, but to give it form. 2 weeks later, Ron's letter arrived. He wrote, We were scared, Mom. After your stroke, we thought we were protecting you. Maybe we pushed too hard. It wasn't hate, it was fear. I read it twice, folded it neatly, and wrote one line back. Love without respect isn't love at all. That evening, I wrapped myself in the shawl Eloise made me. The quiet felt earned. She called later, inviting me to lunch. Yes, I said, no hesitation. Before I slept, I wrote one more line in my notebook. The love I protect now is mine. The rest can go. The next morning I baked a pie. Peach for no reason but joy. I used to think dignity was something given. Now I know it's something rebuilt. At Eloise's table, we laughed over small things. Cats. Burnt dinners, old books. When I left, she said, I hope this isn't the last Sunday. It won't be, I promised. Back home, the house greeted me with quiet familiarity. The hum of the fridge, the window that stuck, the chair that still held shape. I wrote one last note. To anyone reading, if someone tries to shrink you into a signature or silence, remember this: your voice is yours. You don't owe compliance to those who confuse control with love. Strength isn't loud, it's steady. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like applause. For the first time in years, I didn't check the lock.